In this episode of Voice of the Sea, we're at the Waimea River on the west side of Kauaʻi with the Division of Aquatic Resources Estuary Team. Across Hawaii, 14 estuaries are being monitored 4 times a year. At each location, the team systematically throws net and collects environmental DNA to identify fish species, life stage, and abundance. Water quality measurements also help the team assess the health of habitat. We talk with community advocate Clayton Kubo, fisheries technician Tim Licklider, biologist Troy Shimoda and McKenna Allen, and research lead Kim Payton. But first, we talk with Kauaʻi district biologist Heather Ilotalo Ward.
The reason that we're here today is we're doing estuary surveys. And an estuary is where the ocean and the freshwater, the river here, meet. And this is a very important mixing zone because we have fish that like to live kind of in this area, particularly juvenile fish. These are very important fish for the fishing community, like papio, so the jacks, the juveniles, they like to come in here. And Dr. Kim Payton, she's the primary investigator on this project, and she comes to Kauaʻi quarterly, and she surveys this area, and we like to help her out. I am the district biologist for Kauaʻi, and my team is out here helping.
Can you share with me some of the things that you've discovered so far in the couple years you've been out here in Waimea, maybe things that have surprised you or you didn't expect to find?
Yeah, they restored some of the water flow in the Waimea River. Since then, we're seeing o'opu come back, the little gobies come back to this area, and it's just incredible. We've done surveys where we're seeing the tiny hinana, which are the baby o'opu, and they're just coming up in here, and we throw that net, and we are counting just hundreds and hundreds of these little baby o'opu. So it's just so wonderful to see. You know, anecdotally, I heard people were saying, oh, the o'opu were gone, but now after restoring that flow, they're coming back. I mean, we're seeing very healthy numbers of o'opu, so that's really exciting. We know that all of it is connected, mauka to makai. We know that if the freshwater ecosystem is healthy, then that leads into the estuary, which is going to make the reefs healthy. The things that we're really interested in seeing and the questions that we have are things changing? You know, are we seeing a change in the non-native species that are utilizing this area versus endemics versus native species? And then that can kind of give us an indication that we might need to make some different management strategies to try and change that. But if we're seeing the opposite and we're seeing that, okay, efforts that are being made upstream or in the reef are creating a good environment where we're getting more native species coming back, then that's going to be a good indication that, like, okay, management is working well. Oftentimes estuaries have been overlooked. This is also an important part of the ecosystem. I think a lot of times we're focused so much on the reefs and, you know, don't step on the reefs and wear reef safe sunscreen, and, you know, but there's also these other ecosystems, these estuaries, these freshwater streams, and they are all important because it's all tied in together.
And how long have you been surveying here in Waimea?
In Waimea, we only started a couple of years ago, and that's particularly because of one of the community members, Clayton Kubo, who is just amazing and really advocates for his area. And he really brought it to our attention that it was important to survey.
You spend a lot of time up in the mountains, up Mauka. This Waimea River goes like 22 miles. What do you see when you're up hiking?
When I'm up hiking, backpacking, I see the native species, o'opus. Get even different kind of o'opus that I never did see before.
And so for you, like, what is the purpose of this study?
For me is this. I understand how important one estuary is. When you go to a hospital, it's like one nursery where you put the baby in. Then the baby gets strong, and then the baby nourished. This project can show that it's going to bring great awareness, but how is that going to help the fisher gatherer when it comes down to it? It's about food. That's the way I look at it. Because I remember way back when 2 hurricanes had come climbing over this island. We was actually catching opai. We was eating opai. We fry them. We eat them in soup. We was using opai for bait. We was catching papillos. Was feasting on them.
What are your dreams for the future of Waimea River?
I really hope that the kids can come here and swim and fish without concerns of, oh, I wonder how much contaminants get in this river. Water quality is very important to the nearshore waters. If the water quality is pilau, meaning no good, then the fish quality gonna be pilau, meaning no good. So it's basic common sense kind of stuff. I'm hopeful that more money can come to these kind of programs.
We want to keep fishing going. We're here to keep it going, but you have to have good juvenile fish habitat, right? If you don't take care of the habitat that the juveniles need to grow up, why do you think the adult fish should be there? Independent of fishers, taking or not taking. If you think fish are in decline, the health of the juvenile habitat is where we start.
How many estuaries are you studying now as part of this project?
About 14 estuaries in this project right now. I've never found 2 estuaries that are exactly the same. They're all a little bit different. It's really about getting enough research and data from these systems and then taking the traditional ecological knowledge that the Hawaiians shared with us, putting the 2 together and making a strong argument for protecting these areas for the purposes of marine fish as well as freshwater fish and fishing and gathering. When you're going up against, well, how much fresh water should we take out of a system? If the traditional knowledge is telling you this has to stay, and the science is telling you this has to stay, you get a strong argument for allowing more fresh water to flow down into the ocean.
So if estuaries are relying on the fresh water, and the fresh water coming from Mauka is so important, here at Waimea, they've recently increase the freshwater flow. They stop some of the blockage. Have you been able to see that in your surveys?
That's what we'll look for. So we've got before and after. We'll have before and after data. It's really important that this is maintained like having enough fresh water. That's our #1 problem in estuaries is you can't keep taking fresh water out of the system because the estuary both shrinks in size and in productivity. Right? And the freshwater fish they all need that signal to go out. You've got larvae out there right now in the currents, swimming around, ready to mature and come in. It's that freshwater signal that tells them come in here like a beacon, come in, draws them in. If you take the fresh water and you shrink that, the beacon gets duller and duller. And so it's not extending far enough out, so we'll start to lose species.
They don't know where to go.
They don't know where to go.
So we're looking at a lot of fishes today, catching fish. How important is the limu to the health of those fish or the health of the estuary?
So limu are the basis of our food webs, throughout, but especially in an estuary. So when those fish come in, they're either going to feed directly on the limu or they're going to feed on what fed on the limu as part of that. So they're critical to the food web, primary producers.
Talk to me about the tools you're using in your surveys.
We use everything from more traditional fishing with cast nets down to the most sophisticated and latest environmental DNA. What we're going to do is take environmental DNA or eDNA from Waimea River and estuary. We're going to collect that on this filter using this backpack unit, which has a pump and a computer. So environmental DNA, that's actually just cells of fish and other organisms that slough off into the environment. And then we just trap it on this filter unit system. And then we send it off to a laboratory. And they determine what species of fish have been present in this system for the last, say, 24 to 48 hours. That's about as long as it's going to survive in an aquatic environment. And now she's just going to carefully place that into the stream or riverine estuary. And then she's trying to keep that snorkel inside the water without taking up the sand. So there are a couple things it's going to sense. It's going to sense the pressure on that filter, and we don't want to go above a certain pressure, because once you start to put too much pressure on the filter, the cells that we're trying to trap on that filter that the fish have sloughed off start to break up. Now you can see this is low tide, so the water is rushing down through that riverine estuary and out into the ocean. So mostly what we're collecting today is environmental DNA from the fish that are living in this riverine estuary as well as in the stream. Maybe you can see inside that filter housing. So that's all environmental DNA that's been trapped on the inside of this filter housing.
All right, Tim, what are they doing?
Yeah, so these guys are marking off the transect distance, which is going to be about 100 meters, where Troy is going to throw the cast nets to get samples of the baby fish that are living here in the estuary system, and to be able to count and measure those fish so we get an idea of what's utilizing this habitat at this time and how that's changing over time. Troy gets 16 throws in 30 minutes. The clock starts when he searches and it stops when he throws. We're all following behind him to get other buckets ready to measure the fish, sort them out between counted and not counted and different species, as well as aerators to make sure that they've got enough air and stay alive. The suspense is on for his first throw. And he's off. A short bunt throw, but guarantee he's got a lot of baby fish in there. Getting into the water to make sure we got water for these guys. Bringing it up stream here so we can count these fish. Okay, guys, going in, going in. Looks like lots of hole. Got an aerator in there. Someone's got the aerators. We got it in there. Awesome. These guys some air. What does it look like? All the hole? All the hole. Okay.
Yep.
The species is Kulia zanura. Start counting, start measuring. There he goes. Cast number 2. Little mix plate here. We got some hole. We got some maybe mollies. Maybe some mullet. Nice throw. Zanura 92.
066.
79.
66. 70.
We got some jumpers.
77.
Looks like 9-1 Zanura. There's just a whole lot of excitement and desire from these communities for this research, and somebody like Kim that's getting out there and really doing the due diligence of going to the right people in these communities that have spent their whole lives protecting them or watching after them, and making sure that what we're looking at is what they're wanting to see, or what they're looking to try to figure out also, like our questions are aligned.
What's the most exciting part for you about this project?
It's just super exciting to see how much life is in such a small area, and knowing that this is, really what's going to happen here is going to affect all of our ecosystems, and the coral reef ecosystems, the deep water ecosystems, upstream ecosystems, and a lot of this stuff doesn't just stay here or stay there. It goes all the way up and then all the way down. So it's all connected, and I think for me that's been like one of the coolest things to be a part of and get to witness firsthand.
The University of Hawaii's Sea Grant College program focused on Hawaii's coasts and its communities through sustainable development, safe seafood supply, sustainable coastal tourism, hazard resilience, and healthy coastal ecosystems. Hawaii's Sea Grant.
You're watching Voice of the Sea. We're with estuarine biologist Troy Shimoda on the west side of Kauaʻi, throwing net and surveying the fishes of the Waimea estuary.
I basically study the estuary statewide with Kim Payton. What we basically do is cast net surveys looking for juvenile sport fish within the estuary. So everything we catch, we'll measure it in millimeters fork length, and then we'll release it outside of our sample area.
And I saw you looking before you threw the net. So you're not just blindly casting.
So we're actually doing a visual survey. It took a while, maybe a few years to figure out our methods. And we have it pretty much dialed down where we can go statewide and compare the data. Same methods throughout for every single estuary that we survey.
What kind of fishes did you find today?
So today we found a lot of native species. We found a holehole, ama-ama, o'okuakupa. We did find some introduced species, gold spot sardines and Liberty mollies, but not too many of them, which was actually surprising. It was a good day today, a lot of native stuff. It was good to see, like, we saw a lot of different sizes. So juvenile holehole all the way to the adults we caught today.
So for people who might think that estuary is only for baby fish, but there's some adults living here too.
Of course, like, like this estuary, the mouth is small, but other estuaries where the river mouth is actually wider, you have like large predators going in, like barracudas, larger uluas going in.
What do you find important or interesting about the estuary environment?
Well, for me, I just like everything about it, There's a lot of fish in there, lots of fish. I mean, I've seen a lot of different stuff too, a lot of weird things we catch. I think over the course of our study, we've documented over 200 different species within the estuary. So that just tells you how many different species there are. I mean, you won't find them all at once, but every estuary is different. I go throughout the state, so I see a lot of differences, between the types of estuaries that we have and the species within that estuary.
Talk to me about the different types of estuary.
Like for the habitat-wise, like this island, Kauaʻi, we'll see mostly like sand environment with a few rocks. And as you'll get down to like, Maui, Hawaii Island, the habitat will change to where you get more rocks. And then the species will change with the habitat.
What kinds of fish would you find more in a rocky area versus a sandy area?
It's like the sandy area, so since Waimea, there's a lot of rocks, we catch a lot of a holehole. Like the big island, we find a lot of manini, oamas within the rocky area, a holehole, also iao. So a lot of different stuff that we see. We find seahorses within the estuary. A lot of people don't know that.
Right.
The fresh water is the key to the estuary, right? You shrink the fresh water, you'll lose all that habitat for all these different species, all these juvenile fish that live within the estuary. This is so important to our native species.
So we know that fresh water is important to the estuary, but what are the other environmental aspects that are needed to keep this area healthy?
Bank stabilization as well. You have a lot of runoff, pollutants actually. It can affect everything actually. So it comes from above, everything flows from up Mauka. It comes down, it'll affect the estuary.
And you're from one of our largest estuaries in Hawaii?
I'm from Hilo. So a lot of fishers there. We find a lot of kids fishing and a lot of old people as well as everybody in between. Estuaries they're actually a safe place for people to fish. You find like people from little juveniles all the way to like your old kupunas fishing within the estuary. It's a safe place to fish.
Why do you think monitoring is important?
Well, we can see a change over time of what's actually going on. Without it, we wouldn't know what's happening. So that's why we have this long-term monitoring we're doing estuaries. You can actually see trends, and we'll see different patterns when different fish species will recruit into the estuary, what sizes there are within the estuary, what species are there. So over the long term, you can see any patterns and trends that have been happening. What's going on with it? Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? What's happening?
Are there any general trends that you can share?
Overall, introduced species are a big thing now that we're seeing. A lot of estuaries are seeing the condom mullet. We noticed that they're kind of overrunning our estuaries. That's been a thing that's been happening, and it's been happening for a while. Unfortunately, we didn't catch any today. Well, fortunately, yeah, maybe fortunately, actually, yeah. Every estuary that we do survey, we do find a lot of fish. I mean, we always will catch something within the estuary whenever we come out.
We are looking for a few heroes, mentors, trailblazers, innovators, a passion to change lives, spark curiosity, open hearts, and awaken minds, help students answer the question, who am I? This could be your calling, but this is no job. It's the journey of a lifetime. Be a hero. Be a teacher.
You're watching Voice of the Sea. We're at the Waimea River on the west side of Kauaʻi with aquatic biologist McKenna Allen.
I help with the data collection for the 3 estuaries that we survey around Kauaʻi. Today we're here in Waimea Estuary, and so I'm helping with measuring and using the sonde and setting up the project and helping with the eDNA sampling as well.
Oh, what is the sonde?
Oh, the sonde is it's like that long blue instrument that we have. It has several probes on the bottom of it. It records pH, temperature, dissolved oxygen, and turbidity so that we can get an idea of what is mixing as the ocean water interacts with the fresh water. And since we survey quarterly, we can compare over the seasons and then over the years and across different sites. So that kind of helps us understand what the system is doing from like a chemistry standpoint.
So you see some of the same fishes here in the estuary that you see offshore?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, so sometimes we'll see jacks or ulua, omilu, and we'll see their juvenile life stage here in the estuary. Sometimes we'll catch like nehu, the needlefish, sometimes like larger pelagic fish we'll catch here, and those fish are kind of like rare to see on the reef too. It's a cool like puzzle piece to put into the whole picture.
How does the health of the estuary, the river meeting the ocean system, play into the reef?
The estuary or muliwai is the interface between the freshwater coming down from our streams and rivers and the ocean, and it acts as a nursery habitat. If our nursery habitats are not functioning as they should, then we're going to see a lot less of those fish that it is supporting out on the reef.
If people want to get involved, how can they join in?
One thing is that it helps to have people's observations. If you see us out surveying, and let us know like what you're seeing like on the reef in the muliwai, because that helps us understand, because we're only there, you know, a day or a couple days or a week to take that data, but other people have 30 years of experience, and so that can help us in our understanding of the system.
Why is it important for DAR to have that knowledge?
Because we want to collect good data, we want to do good science, and we also want to prioritize projects that are important for the community as well.
Healthy fisheries depend on healthy estuaries. Find out more about your local estuary or join a monitoring group in your area. Learn more about the Division of Aquatic Resources Estuary Team and the importance of estuaries in Hawaii and the Pacific on our website at voiceofthesea.org. Follow us on social media at Voice of the Sea TV. Mahalo for watching Voice of the Sea. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is the dynamic curriculum developed by the University of Hawaii's Curriculum Research and Development Group. The award-winning Fluid Earth and Living Ocean textbooks are now interactive and online. New activities, updated content, and a teacher community. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is now freely available. Find out more at exploringourfluidearth.org.